The massive screens in the Galactic Council's chamber displayed data that made even the most seasoned scientists uncomfortable. The readings from the newly discovered planet defied all logical expectations. High levels of oxygen, extreme temperature variations, intense gravity, and constant tectonic activity. It was a world that should have been classified as uninhabitable. "This cannot be correct," stated Head Counselor Gray, his crystalline form shimmering under the chamber's lights. "Run the scans again." The technical officer, a being made of pure energy contained within an environmental suit, confirmed what they all feared. "The readings are accurate, sir. And there's more. We've detected intelligent life." A collective murmur of disbelief swept through the chamber. The world they were observing wasn't just hostile. It was, by all established metrics, a Class 13 Deathworld. No known species had ever evolved on anything beyond a Class 8. Dr. James Miller stood in his laboratory on Earth, unaware that his world was causing such a stir among the galactic community. He was studying bacterial samples through a microscope when his computer started picking up unusual signals from orbit. At first, he thought it was a malfunction. The patterns were too regular to be natural, but too complex to be human-made satellites. As he analyzed the data, his excitement grew. After years of searching the stars for signs of intelligent life, they had finally made contact, or rather, they had been found. Within hours, the signal was detected by every major observatory on Earth. The world's governments scrambled to respond, but before they could, a massive ship appeared in orbit. It was unlike anything humans had ever seen or imagined, a structure that seemed to bend the very light around it. The first transmission came through on all frequencies. "Greetings, inhabitants of Classification Zone 13E. We come in peace and wish to understand." Dr. Miller was quickly brought to the United Nations emergency session. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, his insights would be crucial. What he didn't expect was to find himself appointed as humanity's primary scientific representative. The alien delegation landed in a neutral location, a field in Switzerland. Their environmental suits were far more elaborate than anyone had anticipated. Later, humanity would learn this was because Earth's atmosphere was considered highly toxic by most galactic standards. "Your world," the alien ambassador began, speaking through a translation device, "is classified as a Class 13 Deathworld. The fact that you exist here is unprecedented." Dr. Miller listened as the ambassador explained the classification system. Class 1 worlds were paradise planets, perfect conditions, minimal gravity, no predators. Earth, with its high oxygen content, powerful gravity, extreme weather, active tectonics, and abundant predatory life, was off the charts. "We have questions," the ambassador continued. "How do you survive the oxygen corruption? The gravity should crush your bones. The temperature variations alone should make life impossible." Dr. Miller couldn't help but smile. What the aliens saw as deadly, humans had always just called home. He explained how life on Earth had evolved to not just survive, but thrive in these conditions. How oxygen was essential to their biology, how their bones and muscles had developed to handle the gravity, and how their bodies could regulate temperature. The aliens were fascinated by everything. They took readings of the soil, the air, the water. When they learned humans deliberately ingested H2O, which they considered a universal solvent, their shock was palpable. "Your species," the ambassador concluded, "is unlike anything we have encountered in the galaxy. You are the first to evolve on a Class 13 world. This makes you unique and potentially invaluable to the galactic community." As the day ended, Dr. Miller looked up at the stars with new eyes. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they weren't, but they also knew they were special. Their harsh world had forged them into something extraordinary, something the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens departed that evening, promising to return with a formal invitation to join the Galactic Council. As their ship disappeared into the darkness, Dr. Miller smiled. Humanity's greatest challenge had always been surviving Earth. Now, that very challenge had become their greatest strength. The Galactic Council's main chamber was enormous, with ceiling heights that disappeared into darkness above. Captain Anna Reed led the human delegation through the vast hall, trying not to show her amusement at how other species scrambled to maintain their distance. Their environmental suits gleamed under the artificial lights as they whispered among themselves. "The Deathworlders are here," she heard one say through a translator. "Can you believe they're walking around without protective gear?" The human delegation consisted of 5 members: Captain Reed, Dr. Miller, 2 diplomats, and a military advisor. They wore their formal uniforms, though the council had suggested full environmental suits. The humans had politely declined, pointing out that they were quite comfortable in standard atmosphere. Head Counselor Gray called the session to order. "We gather today to discuss the potential membership of Earth in the Galactic Council. Never before has a Class 13 species joined our ranks." The presentation began with Dr. Miller explaining human biology. The other species watched in horror as he showed videos of humans drinking water, eating various foods, and engaging in sports. When he showed footage of humans swimming in the ocean, several council members had to leave the chamber to compose themselves. "You willingly immerse yourselves in H2O?" asked a gaseous being through its translator. "The universal solvent. We're mostly made of water," Dr. Miller explained, causing another wave of shock through the chamber. "Our bodies are approximately 60% H2O. The military advisor, Colonel Peter West, then presented Earth's defensive capabilities. He explained how humans had adapted to fight in various terrains and conditions. The footage of military training exercises caused quite a stir. The sight of humans running for kilometers, climbing mountains, and operating in extreme weather conditions seemed impossible to the assembled aliens. "Your soldiers choose to train in such conditions?" asked a member of the council. "Without being forced. Some do it for fun," Colonel West replied with a slight smile. "We call it sports and recreation." The real shock came during the medical examination. The council's medical team had insisted on basic health screenings for the delegation. They were stunned by human resilience. The density of human bones, the efficiency of their immune systems, and their ability to heal from injuries were all far beyond anything they had encountered. "Your bodies actively fight against infections?" one medical officer asked, amazed. "Without technological assistance?" "Yes," Captain Reed explained. "We call it an immune system. All humans have one." The council members were particularly interested in human adaptability. The fact that humans could survive in environments ranging from Arctic cold to desert heat was unprecedented. When they learned that humans could be trained to survive in almost any environment, the council saw immense potential. "Your species," Head Counselor Gray announced, "could revolutionize galactic exploration. There are countless worlds we cannot explore due to harsh conditions. Worlds that, to you, might seem merely uncomfortable." The diplomatic discussions continued for hours. The human delegation explained Earth's various nations, cultures, and governance systems. They discussed technology, trade possibilities, and cultural exchange programs. Throughout it all, the other species maintained their distance, still wary of these beings who could survive conditions they considered lethal. As the session wrapped up, Captain Reed made a bold proposal. "We invite a delegation from the Council to visit Earth, not just in environmental suits, but to experience our world as we do. We can help you develop protective measures that will allow you to safely explore our planet." The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. The idea of voluntarily visiting a Class 13 world was both terrifying and intriguing to the council members. Head Counselor Gray's crystalline form sparkled as he considered the proposal. "Perhaps," he said finally, "it is time we learned to see the galaxy through your eyes. The proposal is accepted." As the human delegation left the chamber that day, they knew they had changed the galaxy's perspective forever. Their harsh home world, rather than being a mark of shame, had become their greatest asset. Humanity was about to show the galaxy what being the Deathworlder truly meant. The emergency alert echoed through the Galactic Council's halls. Reports were coming in from multiple worlds about a mysterious illness that was spreading rapidly among different species. The council chamber, usually organized and calm, was now filled with panic. Commander Thomas Walker stood before the council, listening as they described the situation. 3 colonies had already been quarantined, and the death toll was rising. The pathogen was unlike anything their medical teams had encountered before. "We've traced the origin," Head Counselor Gray announced, his crystalline form dulled with worry. "It came from a Class 12 planet in the Outer Rim. But we can't send investigation teams. The environment is too hostile for our species." All eyes turned to Commander Walker. As Earth's representative to the Council's emergency response team, he knew what they were thinking before they said it. Humans were their only hope. "The planet's conditions?" Walker asked, pulling up the data on his tablet. The readings showed high gravity, toxic atmosphere, and extreme temperature fluctuations. For any other species, it was a death sentence. For humans, it was manageable. "We need samples from the planet's surface," the Council's chief scientist explained. "We believe the pathogen originated there, and understanding its source might help us create a cure. But the environmental conditions," Walker interrupted, "are well within human tolerance limits. We can handle this." Within hours, a human expedition team was assembled. Walker led the group of 5 specialists, 2 biologists, a geologist, a medical doctor, and a survival expert. They were equipped with standard protective gear, not because they needed it for survival, but to prevent contamination of their samples. The Council watched in amazement as the humans prepared for their mission. While other species required complex environmental suits just to survive normal atmospheric conditions, the humans were gearing up to visit a world that would kill most life forms in seconds. Their ship landed on the hostile planet 12 hours later. The surface was a nightmare of razor-sharp rock formations and swirling toxic clouds. The gravity was 1.8 times Earth normal, crushing for most species, but just heavy for the humans. "Reminds me of mountain climbing in bad weather," Walker commented as they stepped onto the surface. His team spread out, collecting samples and taking readings. They moved with practiced efficiency, their bodies naturally adapting to the higher gravity. The first sign of the pathogen's source came when they discovered a crater filled with an unusual fungal growth. It was releasing spores into the atmosphere, spores that would become deadly once they adapted to other environments. "This is it," Dr. Roberts, one of the biologists, confirmed. "The fungus is unlike anything we've seen before. It's evolving rapidly, adapting to new conditions. That's why it's so deadly to other species." As they collected samples, a storm approached. The toxic winds picked up, and visibility dropped to near zero. For any other species, it would have meant certain death. For the humans, it was just another challenge. "Keep close," Walker ordered. Standard alpine storm protocols. They worked through the storm, securing their samples and data. The Council watched through their helmet cameras, astounded by the humans' resilience. Where their best environmental suits would have failed, human bodies simply adapted. Back on the Council station, the samples were carefully analyzed. The human team had succeeded where no other species could have. They'd not only survived the hostile environment, but had efficiently completed their mission. "Your species continues to amaze us," Head Counselor Gray told Walker during the debriefing. "You treat conditions we consider unsurvivable as mere inconveniences." Walker shrugged. "That's what Earth taught us. Adapt, overcome, survive. It's in our nature." The data they collected would prove crucial in developing a cure for the pathogen. But more than that, the mission proved something important to the galaxy. Humanity's greatest weakness had become their greatest strength. The harsh world that had forged them was now their ticket to becoming one of the most valuable species in the galaxy. As the Council began developing the cure, Walker and his team were already preparing for their next mission. After all, there were plenty more impossible worlds out there, waiting to be explored. And now, the galaxy knew exactly who to call when they needed the impossible done. The human team's boots crunched on the crystalline surface of the hostile world. The sky above them glowed an eerie purple, filled with swirling clouds of what their instruments identified as highly corrosive gas. To any other species in the galaxy, this place was certain death. To the humans, it was Tuesday. Commander Walker led his team across the jagged landscape. They were tracking the source of the deadly pathogen, following readings that grew stronger with each step. Behind them, their ship looked tiny against the massive cliffs that rose into the poisonous atmosphere. Temperatures dropping fast, reported Dr. Roberts, checking his instruments. -40 and falling. The rest of the team simply adjusted their thermal gear. What would freeze most alien species solid was just another environmental challenge for humans to overcome. They reached a vast canyon, its depths disappearing into darkness below. The pathogen readings were strongest here. As they set up their survey equipment, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Tectonic activity, the team's geologist called out, similar to Earth's Pacific Ring of Fire. What would send other species running in terror barely interrupted their work. They had grown up with earthquakes, storms, and natural disasters. This was nothing new. The first sign that they weren't alone came when their sensors detected movement in the canyon. Something was living down there, something that had evolved in this lethal environment. The team exchanged excited looks. They were about to make first contact with a truly extreme environment species. Remember, Walker cautioned, we're probably more dangerous to them than they are to us. Full containment protocols. They descended into the canyon using their climbing gear, the increased gravity making each movement more challenging but not impossible. Other species would have needed powered assistance just to move. The humans relied on their natural strength and endurance. Halfway down, they found the first evidence of the native life forms. Massive structures that looked like a cross between coral reefs and crystal formations covered the canyon walls. And they were growing. These aren't just structures, Dr. Roberts said, examining them through his equipment. They're living organisms, and they're the source of the pathogen. The creatures, which the team named Crystal Builders, were a silicon-based life form that had evolved in the extreme conditions. They reproduced by releasing spores, the same spores that had become deadly when they reached other worlds and mutated. As the team collected samples, they realized why no other species could have made this discovery. The environment itself was part of the organism's life cycle. The corrosive atmosphere, the extreme temperatures, the crushing gravity, all of it was necessary for these creatures to exist. They're not trying to harm anyone, Walker realized. Their spores were never meant to reach other worlds. They're just trying to survive, like any other species. A particularly strong tremor shook the canyon. Rocks began falling around them. But the team moved with practiced efficiency, protecting their samples and equipment. Years of living on a geologically active planet had prepared them for exactly this kind of situation. Time to go, Walker ordered. The team began their ascent, carrying the precious samples that could help save countless lives across the galaxy. As they climbed, the Crystal Builders seemed to react to their presence, glowing with bioluminescent pulses. Back on their ship, as they prepared to leave the hostile world, the team felt a sense of accomplishment. They had not only survived conditions that would kill most species in the galaxy, but they had also made a groundbreaking discovery. The Council won't believe this, Dr. Roberts said, carefully storing the samples. An entirely new form of life, evolving in conditions they considered impossible for any living thing. Walker looked back at the purple sky and the glowing canyon below. Maybe that's why Earth made us the way we are, he said. Not just to survive, but to discover, to go places no one else can go, to find things no one else can find. The ship lifted off, leaving the Crystal Builders to their harsh world. The humans had done what no other species could. They had not only survived a Class 12 world, but had unlocked its secrets. And in doing so, they had proven once again, why humanity's evolution on a Deathworld had been a gift rather than a curse. The Galactic Council's medical station was in chaos. Despite quarantine measures, the pathogen had spread to 17 more worlds. The alien doctors worked frantically in their protective suits, while human medical staff moved freely among the patients, their natural immunity keeping them safe. Dr. Miller stood at his research station, examining blood samples from both infected aliens and healthy humans. The contrast was striking. While the alien samples showed massive cellular breakdown, human blood seemed to destroy the pathogen on contact. "It's our immune system," he explained to the Council's medical board. "Our bodies have evolved to fight off threats like this. We deal with thousands of potentially deadly organisms on Earth every day." The alien doctors were stunned. The idea of constantly fighting off infections was foreign to them. Their species had evolved on safer worlds, developing technology to protect them instead of biological defenses. News of more outbreaks kept coming. The Council's emergency broadcast system was constant with reports of new cases. Spaceports were shut down, trade routes closed, and entire systems were placed under quarantine. Then came the breakthrough. Dr. Miller discovered that human antibodies didn't just fight off the pathogen. They completely destroyed it. What was killing other species was, to human biology, no more threatening than a mild cold. "We can use human blood plasma to create a cure," he announced to the Council. "Our bodies already know how to beat this thing. We just need to teach other species how to do it." The Council chamber erupted in discussion. Using human biological material to treat other species was unprecedented. Some were afraid it might cause even worse problems. But with the death toll rising, they had no choice. "How many human donors would you need?" Head Counselor Gray asked. "All of them," Dr. Miller replied. "We need as many different human immune responses as possible to create a universal cure. We need to call Earth." The response from Earth was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours of receiving the distress call, hospitals worldwide began collecting plasma donations. Millions of humans volunteered, understanding that their blood could save entire civilizations. Military transport ships, converted into medical vessels, carried countless containers of human plasma to affected worlds. The Council watched in amazement as humans worked tirelessly, their bodies naturally resistant to the pathogen that was devastating other species. Dr. Miller led the treatment program, working with alien medical teams to adapt human antibodies for different species. It was delicate work. What saved one species could harm another if not properly modified. "Your people are remarkable," an alien doctor told him as they watched the first group of patients recover. "You evolved on a world that should have killed you, and instead it made you strong enough to save us all." The cure worked faster than anyone expected. Within days, infected individuals began to recover. The panic that had gripped the galaxy began to subside. Humans had turned a potential apocalypse into a manageable medical situation. But the implications went far beyond this single crisis. The Council had to accept a new reality. Humans weren't just tough survivors from a deadly world. They were living proof that what doesn't kill you really does make you stronger. "This changes everything," Head Counselor Gray announced in an emergency session. "Humanity's biological adaptations aren't just about survival anymore. They're the key to protecting all species in the galaxy." The Council voted to establish new medical research centers on Earth, where human biology could be studied to develop treatments for other diseases. What had once been seen as a primitive and dangerous world was now recognized as a vital resource for galactic medicine. Dr. Miller stood at his lab window, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy, carrying more patients seeking treatment. Earth's harsh evolution had prepared humanity for this moment without them even knowing it. "We spent so long thinking Earth made us weak compared to advanced civilizations," he said to his team. "Now we know it made us strong enough to protect them all." The crisis had brought the galaxy to its breaking point, but in doing so, it had revealed humanity's true purpose in the galactic community. They weren't just survivors of a death world. They were its greatest gift to the stars. The training facility on Mars was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Alien species from across the Council worlds worked alongside human instructors, learning to survive in conditions they once thought impossible. The Red Planet had become the galaxy's premier extreme environment training ground. Major Robert Blake watched from the observation deck as a group of trainees worked through the low-pressure obstacle course. Their environmental suits were lighter than usual. Part of the program was gradually adapting to harsher conditions. They're improving faster than expected, his assistant noted, tracking the vital signs of each trainee. What would have killed them months ago now only caused mild discomfort. Human genetic research had made this possible. In the main laboratory complex, Dr. Miller and his team had made another breakthrough. They had successfully mapped the genetic adaptations that allowed humans to thrive in harsh conditions. More importantly, they had found ways to temporarily grant similar resistances to other species. The treatment won't make them as tough as humans, Dr. Miller explained to the Council representatives. But it will allow them to survive conditions that would have been lethal before. The implications were enormous. Worlds that had been classified as too dangerous to explore were now becoming accessible. Survey teams, led by human experts and supported by adapted alien specialists, were discovering resources and opportunities that had been impossible to reach before. "Watch your step," Major Blake called out as he led a group through a simulated high-gravity environment. "Remember what we taught you. Use your whole body, stay low, conserve energy." The trainees moved carefully, their bodies enhanced by human-derived treatments. The genetic enhancement program was strictly voluntary, but there was no shortage of volunteers. Species that had evolved in safe, controlled environments were discovering the advantages of human-style adaptability. Trade ships now carried crews capable of handling emergencies that would have been fatal before. "Your species has changed everything," a council member told Dr. Miller during an inspection. "We thought Earth's conditions made you primitive. Now we understand they made you powerful." In orbit around Earth, the new Galactic Research Station had become the busiest scientific facility in known space. Researchers from thousands of worlds studied human biology, working to understand how Earth's challenges had created such remarkable adaptations. The breakthrough came when they discovered that human cellular structure itself was different. Earth's harsh conditions had forced human cells to become incredibly resilient, able to repair damage and adapt to new conditions in ways other species couldn't. "It's not just about surviving," Dr. Miller explained to a group of alien scientists. "It's about thriving. Earth taught us to turn challenges into advantages." The training programs expanded. Humans began teaching other species not just how to survive, but how to think like Deathworlders. Problem-solving, adaptability, and resourcefulness became as important as physical conditioning. Major Blake watched as his latest class practiced emergency procedures without their usual protective gear. They were nervous but determined. "Your bodies are stronger than you think," he told them. "Earth's gravity, atmosphere, and conditions were trying to kill us for millions of years. We learned to fight back." The Council formally reclassified Earth as a cradle world, recognizing that its harsh conditions had forged a species capable of revolutionizing galactic civilization. Human experts were now in high demand across known space, teaching others how to expand their limitations. In the Mars facility's recreation area, aliens and humans shared meals and stories. The fear that had once separated them was gone, replaced by respect and curiosity. They had learned that strength comes in many forms, and Earth's lessons were worth learning. "We're not just teaching them to survive," Major Blake told his staff during a briefing. "We're teaching them to evolve. Every species has the potential. They just need to learn how to use it." As the sun set on another Martian day, the facility hummed with activity. In laboratories, training rooms, and classrooms, a revolution was taking place. Humanity's greatest challenge had become their greatest gift to the galaxy. The knowledge that what makes you struggle can make you stronger. The Deathworlders were no longer feared. They were teachers, showing the galaxy that the power to adapt and overcome was within reach of all species. Earth's harsh legacy had become a beacon of hope for civilization itself. The Galactic Council chamber looked very different now. Where once other species had kept their distance from humans, now they sat together as equals. Earth's delegation had grown from a handful of representatives to a large team of experts who were vital to galactic operations. Admiral Walker, formerly commander, stood at the podium addressing the assembled species. The exploration reports displayed behind him showed hundreds of newly accessible worlds, all thanks to human-led expeditions. 10 years ago, we were the strange creatures from a deadly world, he began. Today, we're leading the largest expansion of galactic civilization in known history. Worlds that were once forbidden are now becoming colonies, research stations, and trading posts. The statistics were impressive. Over 300 previously inaccessible planets had been explored. 50 new species had been discovered, many of them living in conditions once thought impossible for intelligent life. Earth had become the center of a scientific revolution. The classification system no longer works, Head Counselor Gray announced. We need a new way to understand worlds, based not on what makes them dangerous, but on what makes them unique. The new system used Earth as its baseline. Worlds weren't ranked by how deadly they were, but by what kind of adaptations were needed to explore them. Human biological research had made it possible for other species to safely visit even Class 13 worlds. In Earth's orbit, the Galactic Academy of Extreme Environment Studies had become the most prestigious scientific institution in known space. Students from every council world came to learn from human instructors and experience Earth's conditions firsthand. Dr. Miller, now Chief of Galactic Biological Research, led the way through the Academy's main laboratory. We've learned as much from teaching others as they've learned from us, he explained to a group of new students. Every species has hidden strengths. Earth just taught us how to find them. The Academy's success had led to similar facilities being built on other challenging worlds. Human experts helped establish training centers on ice planets, high-gravity worlds, and even in the atmosphere of gas giants. Each location pushed the boundaries of what was possible. The galaxy was waiting for you, an alien scientist told Dr. Miller during a research review. We had the technology, but you had the spirit to use it. You showed us that barriers exist to be overcome. The human approach to challenges had transformed galactic society. Other species began developing their own natural resistances, guided by human expertise. What began as survival training had become a philosophy of constant improvement. Watch this, Admiral Walker said, showing the council footage from a recent expedition. A mixed team of humans and aliens was exploring a volcanic world, using both protective technology and biological adaptations. They moved with confidence through conditions that would have been unthinkable a decade ago. The greatest change was in how the galaxy viewed Earth. What had once been seen as a horrible accident of evolution, intelligent life arising on a Deathworld, was now recognized as a crucial step in galactic development. Earth's harsh conditions had created exactly what the galaxy needed. We're establishing the first permanent settlement on a Class 15 world, Admiral Walker announced. The council chamber erupted in excitement. Even humans would need significant protection on such a planet, but the mission would push the boundaries of possible even further. In the Academy's observation dome, Dr. Miller watched Earth rotate below. Ships from across the galaxy arrived and departed constantly, carrying students, researchers, and explorers. The pale blue dot that had seemed so isolated now sat at the center of a new age of discovery. Humanity's greatest strength, he told his students, isn't that we survived Earth. It's that we learned to help others do what we can do. We're not just exploring the galaxy, we're teaching it to explore itself. The new dawn had arrived. Humanity had evolved on a world that should have killed them, and in doing so had gained the knowledge the galaxy needed. Earth was no longer a death world. It was the crucible where the future of galactic civilization had been forged. As the Academy's lights glowed in Earth's orbit, countless ships headed out into the unknown. Each one carried the legacy of humanity's struggle, the knowledge that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and that every challenge is an opportunity to grow. The age of limitation was over. The age of adaptation had begun.